For years, my family said I was not successful enough to be included. They never said it like that at first. Not directly. That would have required honesty, and honesty makes people uncomfortable. Instead, it came out sideways. In pauses, in scheduling mistakes, in last-minute changes that somehow always happened after I asked if I was welcome. It started with small things. A birthday dinner I found out about afterward, when my sister posted photos online. A holiday gathering that had already ended by the time I got the text. Group messages where everyone replied except me. At first, I assumed it was an accident. I told myself people were busy, people forget, families drift. That is what adults say when they do not want to believe what is happening in front of them. I did not confront anyone. I am not built that way. I have never been good at demanding explanations. I observe, I wait, I listen. That habit had served me well in business. At home, it only delayed the inevitable. Eventually, the excuses became thinner. My daughter once said casually, like she was commenting on the weather, that I probably would not enjoy the restaurant they chose because it was more of a corporate scene. She smiled when she said it. She meant no harm, I am sure. That is what people always think. Harm requires intention. Erasure does not. My son was worse. He had learned how to sound reasonable while being dismissive. That is a skill. It takes practice. He would say things like, "It is just a networking thing, Dad," or, "You know how these events are." He would pat my shoulder, the way you do with someone you are finished listening to. When I tried to explain what I did for a living, they lost interest halfway through my sentences. Not openly. That would have been rude. They just let their eyes wander. Phones came out, drinks were refilled, conversations shifted. I learned to stop mid-thought. I stopped explaining. That was the first thing I gave up. The second was visiting. At first, I reduced it without admitting it to myself. Once every 2 weeks became once a month. Once a month became holidays only. Holidays became excuses, work deadlines, traffic, weather. Eventually, the invitations stopped coming altogether, and I did not have to invent reasons anymore. What surprised me was not the silence. It was how quickly everyone adjusted to it. Families are efficient that way. They reconfigure themselves around absences without making a sound. I saw it in photos. Weddings I attended only through a screen. Promotions announced in smiling captions. New homes, new cars, new lives. I was not cut out of the pictures. I had never been in them to begin with. My name still appeared, though. That part came later. At the time, I told myself I did not care. That was a lie, but a manageable one. I focused on work. I focused on routine. I focused on the comfort of predictability. My wife noticed, of course. She notices everything. She did not press me. She never does. She waits until people tell the truth on their own. We had our own rhythm. Morning coffee, evening walks, quiet dinners where nothing needed to be explained. She never asked why the phone stopped ringing. She never asked why my calendar was suddenly empty on weekends. She only watched. The first crack in the story I was telling myself came from a man I had not spoken to in years. He called me one afternoon, out of the blue. Old colleague, old acquaintance. We had crossed paths briefly in another life, before titles hardened and relationships calcified. He said my full name when I answered the phone. Not unusual, except for the tone. There was a hesitation there, a question he did not ask directly. People often test the ground before stepping on it. "You are still connected with the firm, right?" he asked. I told him no. I had not been for years. There was a pause, a long one. "Interesting," he said, and then changed the subject too quickly. After the call ended, I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at nothing. The feeling was familiar, the same one I used to get before deals went bad. The quiet tightening behind the eyes, the sense that something had shifted without making a sound. I did not act on it immediately. That would have been emotional. I gathered information instead. I started listening more carefully, not to my family, to the edges, to people who had no reason to lie to me. A former client mentioned my name in passing, in a context that did not make sense. A junior executive asked if I was still advising. Someone congratulated me on a project I had never heard of. The pattern emerged slowly, like an image coming into focus. They were using my name, not forging signatures, not committing crimes, nothing dramatic, nothing illegal, just implication, association, a quiet suggestion that I was involved, that I was supportive, that I endorsed. They had learned how to benefit from what I had built without including me in it. That realization did not hurt the way betrayal is supposed to hurt. It clarified things. Pain makes people irrational. Clarity does the opposite. I attended one more family event after that. It was a celebration. Of course it was. They were always celebrating something. Success has a way of feeding itself. I arrived on time. That alone surprised them. My daughter looked briefly confused when she saw me, like she had forgotten I existed in 3 dimensions. My son recovered faster. He always does. He hugged me, introduced me to people who did not ask my name. The room buzzed with conversations I was not part of. Deals, travel, future plans. I stood at the edge, holding a drink I did not want, watching my children perform versions of themselves they had rehearsed carefully. At some point, my son-in-law made a joke. He said something about old-school thinking, about how times had changed, about how certain people never adapted. People laughed, not cruelly, comfortably. Laughter is easier when you are sure you are on the right side of it. I laughed too. That surprised them. It surprised me as well. The moment passed. Music swelled. Someone clinked a glass, another toast, another story where I did not exist. I left early. No one noticed. On the drive home, I did not feel angry. Anger would have been easier. I felt resolved. That was the night I stopped thinking of myself as their father. Not emotionally, functionally. Fathers explain. Fathers justify. Fathers forgive. I was done doing any of those things. At home, my wife was waiting. She did not ask how it went. "I think they are using your name," she said. Just like that. I looked at her. "Not illegally," she added, "but effectively." I nodded. She poured herself a drink. Did not offer me one. She knows when I do not need it. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I thought about that for a long time before answering. "I am going to disappear properly," I said. She studied me, not with concern, with interest. "That is usually the moment when something starts," she said. She was right. It was. And it would end very differently. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? Disappearing properly takes planning. Anyone can stop showing up. Anyone can stop answering calls. That is not disappearance. That is absence, and absence invites curiosity. Real disappearance requires structure. It requires consistency. It requires you to become so unremarkable that no one bothers to ask where you went. I started by changing nothing that mattered. I kept my routines. Same coffee shop, same walking route in the evenings, same grocery store on Sundays. If anyone was watching, they would see continuity. That was important. You never want to announce a shift before you are ready to use it. What I changed was visibility. I stopped posting online entirely. No updates, no likes, no passive acknowledgments of other people's lives. I removed myself from shared calendars. I let old contacts go cold without explanation. When someone reached out, I answered politely and briefly, then let the thread die on its own. People interpret silence as disinterest. Disinterest makes them comfortable. At work, I did the same thing. I stepped back from conversations that did not require me. I declined meetings that could be handled by email. I stopped offering opinions unless they were requested directly. When they were requested, I kept them short and practical. No vision statements, no long-term ideas, just answers. Within a month, I became invisible in a way that felt almost surgical. My wife noticed the effect before I did. "You are fading out of people's peripheral vision," she said one night, watching me organize documents at the dining table. "That is usually a dangerous position." "For them or for me?" I asked. She smiled into her glass. "Depends on what you do next." What I did next was listen. I reached out to a few old contacts under the pretense of catching up. Nothing formal, no agendas, just conversations. I asked questions that sounded casual: where they were working now, who they reported to, what projects were moving. I heard my name again, not directly, not often, but enough. "Your son has really stepped up," someone said. "Must be nice to see the next generation carrying things forward." Another mentioned my daughter's confidence, her presence, her ability to command a room. They used words that used to be applied to me. I found that interesting. When I asked how they knew me, they stumbled. "Oh, well, you know, through the company, through connections." I let it go. Always let it go. The picture filled in slowly. My children had learned how to leverage my past work without ever acknowledging it publicly. They did not claim I was involved. They did not say I endorsed anything. They simply allowed people to assume, and people always do. Assumption is the most efficient form of influence. What surprised me most was not that they did it. It was how comfortable they were doing it without me. They had replaced me long before I stepped aside. I decided to see it up close. The company they worked for was not one I had followed closely. Mid-sized, respectable, growing fast enough to attract attention, but not scrutiny. The kind of place where ambition could outrun oversight if no one was looking. I requested a tour, not as myself, not as anything impressive, just another potential investor with vague interests and flexible timing. I used an intermediary, nothing deceptive, just distant. The building was clean, efficient, glass and steel arranged to suggest transparency. I watched employees move through the space with practiced urgency. I listened to the language, synergy, alignment, roadmaps, familiar words, comfortable words. My son's name came up twice during the tour. My daughter's once. Never together, always separately, always positively. I asked questions, neutral ones, about culture, about leadership. They answered confidently, proudly. When I left, I did not feel angry. I felt validated. Everything I suspected was there: the structure, the weakness, the reliance on perception. Perception is a fragile thing. That night, my wife sat across from me at the kitchen table, reviewing notes I had not told her about. "They are not as careful as they think," she said. "No," I agreed. "They think the story is finished." She looked up. "Is it?" "No," I said. "It is just entering the middle." She nodded. She likes middles. Beginnings are messy. Endings are cruel. Middles are where control lives. We talked through scenarios, not emotionally, logistically. She asked questions I had not considered: timelines, exposure, collateral effects. She has always been better at thinking several moves ahead. I have always been better at executing the move in front of me. Ownership is rarely dramatic at the beginning. People imagine signatures, handshakes, boardrooms full of tension. In reality, it starts with spreadsheets and patience. It starts with watching numbers move in predictable ways and waiting for the moment when no one is paying attention anymore. That was the moment I wanted. I did not rush. Rushing is how amateurs announce themselves. I let the company continue exactly as it was. Growth masked inefficiency. Expansion disguised dependency. When things move fast enough, no one asks why. I positioned myself where curiosity would not reach. Quiet capital, minority interests, structured options, pieces that looked insignificant on their own. I spread them out, kept them boring, and let time do what time always does. My wife watched the process like someone observing weather patterns. She never interfered. She asked questions at night, when the house was quiet and the world felt distant. "Are they still using your name?" she asked once. "More than before," I said. She nodded. "Then they are becoming careless." They were. My daughter began speaking at events, panels, conferences. She told stories about resilience and vision, about learning from strong influences growing up. She never mentioned me. She did not need to. People filled in the blanks for her. My son followed a different path: internal power, titles, authority. He learned how to sound indispensable without ever sounding responsible. I had taught him that once, years ago, without realizing how he would use it. They were good at what they did. That was important. Revenge only feels complete when it dismantles something functional. The first time I saw them from across a room after months of silence, I felt nothing. It was at an industry gathering, not a family event, neutral ground. I attended as myself, unannounced, unimportant. No one paid me much attention. That was fine. My son spotted me first. His eyes widened briefly before settling into a practiced smile. He approached with the confidence of someone who believes they control the narrative. "Did not expect to see you here," he said. "I did not expect to be invited," I replied. He laughed, unsure how seriously to take that. We exchanged small talk. Nothing meaningful. He mentioned projects. I nodded. I mentioned nothing. My daughter arrived midway through the conversation. She hugged me, light and quick. She smelled like confidence and expensive perfume. "You should come by sometime," she said. "See what we have built." I almost laughed. "Maybe," I said. She smiled. They both smiled. People always smile when they believe the past is behind them. After they walked away, I stood alone for a moment, listening to the hum of voices, the clinking of glasses, the rhythm of ambition. I had spent decades in rooms like that. I knew their weaknesses better than their strengths. That night, my wife asked how it felt to see them again. "Like watching actors rehearse," I said. "They are very good. They just do not know the audience has changed." The next phase required proximity. I did not announce my involvement when it finally crossed the threshold that mattered. I did not need to. Ownership does not require introductions. It requires access. My presence inside the company began quietly. I scheduled meetings with departments that had no idea who I was: operations, logistics, infrastructure, the parts no one brags about, the parts that keep everything upright. I listened more than I spoke. People tell you everything when they think you cannot use it. They talked about pressure, about unrealistic timelines, about leadership decisions that prioritized optics over stability, about promises made without understanding consequences. I recognized patterns. The company had grown fast by borrowing credibility, by implying experience it did not yet have, by relying on my children's confidence to carry weight they had not earned. That weight was starting to strain the structure. I did nothing to stop it. That would have been merciful. The first real action came unexpectedly. My son confronted me in a parking garage late one evening. He had followed me, not aggressively, curiously. That is always how it starts. "You have been asking a lot of questions," he said. I turned slowly. The concrete echoed softly. The space smelled like oil and cooling metal. "I ask questions," I said. "It is a habit. About things that are not your concern anymore." "Everything becomes my concern eventually," I said. He stepped closer, too close, testing. "Are you trying to make a point?" he asked. "No," I said. "I am trying to understand something." "What?" "Why you think you are in control." His jaw tightened. For a moment I saw the child he used to be, the one who hated not knowing what came next. "You should stay out of this," he said. I smiled. "That is what you told me years ago," I said, and I listened. Security rounded the corner then. The moment dissolved. Public space has a way of neutralizing private threats. He walked away without another word. I watched him go, calm as ever. The next day, my wife handed me another folder. "Timing is changing," she said. I flipped through it. The pieces were aligning faster than expected. "Why?" I asked. "Because they are panicking," she said. "They just do not know why yet." I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of inevitability settle in. The middle was closing, and the ending was starting to take shape. Panic rarely announces itself. It hides behind productivity, behind urgency, behind sudden bursts of decisiveness that feel impressive until you realize they are reactions, not plans. I saw it spreading through the company like a low-grade fever. Meetings multiplied, deadlines tightened, emails arrived later at night, heavier with expectation. People were compensating. My son responded the way he always did when pressure increased. He centralized, pulled decisions inward, trusted fewer people, spoke more, listened less. That kind of control feels powerful at first. Then it becomes a bottleneck. My daughter reacted differently. She expanded outward, more appearances, more messaging, more public reassurance. She smiled wider and spoke longer, filling space before anyone else could. Neither of them noticed me moving closer. I began attending internal reviews regularly. No title, no fanfare, just a seat at the table that no one questioned because it had always been there. That is how authority works when it is quiet. People assume someone else invited you. I asked about infrastructure, about redundancy, about failure points. The room shifted when I did. Not dramatically, just enough. Enough for people to realize that someone was asking questions that did not flatter them. One operations lead lingered after a meeting one afternoon, closed the door softly. "You seem to understand how this breaks," he said. "I have seen things break," I replied. He nodded. "Leadership is focused on growth, not stress." "Stress always arrives," I said. "Growth just decides when." He laughed, nervous. Then he stopped laughing. That conversation repeated itself in different forms over the next few weeks. Different people, same concerns. Everyone assumed someone else was responsible for raising them. No one wanted to be the first. That is when systems fail. At home, my wife adjusted our routines subtly. She cleared evenings, took calls in other rooms, spoke to people I did not ask about. I noticed, of course. She never hid anything. She just moved at a different pace. "They are going to look for someone to blame soon," she said one night. "They always do." "For what?" I asked. "For losing control," she said. "Even if they do not know they have lost it yet." The next confrontation came sooner than expected. It happened during a quarterly review. My son chaired it. He spoke confidently, pacing slightly as he talked through projections. I watched the way he held himself, the way he assumed attention. He had learned well. When questions came, they came to him. He answered them smoothly until one of them landed wrong. "Who signed off on the integration timeline?" someone asked. He hesitated, just for a second. "I did," he said. "Based on what assessment?" He glanced at a slide, at a number, at a story he had rehearsed. I spoke before he could finish. "Based on projected demand curves that assumed uninterrupted throughput," I said, "which is optimistic given the current infrastructure." The room went quiet. My son turned to me slowly. His expression was carefully neutral. "That is one interpretation," he said. "It is the accurate one," I replied. "Unless something has changed." It had not. The conversation moved on, but the damage was done. People had noticed. Authority had cracked. Just a little. Afterward, my daughter cornered me near the elevators. "What are you doing?" she asked quietly. "Listening," I said. "You are undermining us." "I am describing reality," I said. "If that feels like undermining, you should ask why." Her eyes narrowed. She had always been better at reading people than her brother. "You do not belong here," she said. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "I belong everywhere you used my name," I said. Her face changed then, just slightly. Fear does that. It sharpens features, makes people smaller. That evening, my wife did not ask how the day went. She poured 2 drinks and slid one across the table. They are circling, she said. I know. Good, she said. Then it is time. She laid out what she had been working on. Quietly, carefully, legal structures, voting rights, contingencies. Everything had been mapped weeks ago. She had simply waited for the moment when resistance would be weakest. You did this without telling me, I said. I did it so you would not hesitate, she replied. She was right. I would have. Once you step fully into something like this, you do not get to pretend it was an accident. The next day, I requested access to the board. Not as a father, not as an observer, as an owner. That was when the story stopped belonging to my children and started belonging to me. The boardroom had a way of flattening people. No matter how confident they were in the hallway, once they sat at that long table, the air changed. Titles softened, voices dropped. People measured every word like it might be weighed later. I had always liked rooms like that. They rewarded preparation more than volume. I arrived early. That was intentional. I took a seat near the middle, not at the head. Power announces itself best when it does not rush for position. When the others filtered in, they glanced at me, some curious, some confused. No one asked who I was. That told me everything I needed to know about how decisions had been made here lately. My son arrived last. He paused when he saw me, just long enough for the room to notice. Then he smiled and took his place at the head of the table, as if nothing had changed. The meeting began. Metrics, forecasts, strategic initiatives, the usual parade of confidence dressed as certainty. I listened. I took notes. I watched who deferred to whom. I watched who avoided eye contact when certain topics came up. When the agenda reached governance, the chair cleared his throat. We have a request to acknowledge a new ownership position, he said. My son stiffened. The chair looked at me. Would you like to introduce yourself? I stood. My name is David Hale, I said. I hold a controlling interest in this company. Silence has texture when it lands hard enough. I felt it settle over the table like dust. My son laughed. Not loudly, not convincingly. That is not possible, he said. It is documented, I replied, and it is effective. Papers moved, screens refreshed, people read. My daughter arrived late, breathless, confident until she saw the room. She stopped. What is this? She asked. I did not answer her. I let the documents do it for me. The chair nodded slowly. It appears the ownership change is valid, he said. My son stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. You cannot do this, he said. You were never involved. I was never acknowledged, I corrected. Those are not the same thing. Voices rose, objections flew, confusion filled the space. I waited until it burned itself out. Then I spoke. I am not here to dismantle anything today, I said. I am here to understand what I own. That line settled differently. People relaxed, or thought they did. The meeting ended without resolution. It could not have ended any other way. Too much had shifted, too quickly. In the hallway afterward, my son blocked my path. You planned this, he said. Yes, I replied. How long? Longer than you think. He leaned in, lowering his voice. You are trying to embarrass us. No, I said. I am letting you be seen. He stepped back as if struck. That evening, the company buzzed. Messages flew, calls stacked, people speculated. Rumors formed before facts had time to settle. At home, my wife listened as I described the room. They will try to isolate you, she said. Frame this as a misunderstanding, a family dispute. They can try. They will also try to provoke you, she said, into reacting emotionally. I will not, she nodded. Good, because the next phase is physical. I raised an eyebrow. Presence, she clarified. Visibility. You do not hide anymore. The next week, I became unavoidable. I walked floors, sat in meetings, asked questions that demanded answers. I showed up unannounced and stayed longer than expected. I listened when people spoke and remembered what they said. My children reacted predictably. My daughter went on offense. She spoke to anyone who would listen, framed the situation as confusion, as legacy issues, as emotional baggage interfering with business. She was persuasive. She always had been. My son withdrew. He watched, calculated, waited for a mistake. I did not give him one. The tension finally broke in the lobby one morning. My daughter confronted me in front of employees. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "You are hurting people," she said. "I am revealing structures," I replied. "You are destroying your own family." "I am responding to what it became," I said. People watched. Phones stayed in pockets, but eyes recorded everything. She stepped closer. "You think you have won," she said. "No," I said. "I think you have not understood what losing looks like yet." She slapped the folder out of my hand. Papers scattered. Security moved in instantly. She stood frozen, realizing too late how it looked. That moment spread through the company faster than any email. By the time I reached my office, my wife had already called. "They just crossed a line," she said. "Yes," I agreed. "And now," she said, "they are scared." Fear makes people reckless. That was exactly what I needed. Fear changed the building. It was subtle at first. People spoke more carefully. Doors closed more often. Meetings ended earlier than scheduled. You could feel it in the way conversations paused when I entered a room, not because I demanded attention, but because no one knew what version of the future I represented yet. Fear needs a shape. Without one, it leaks everywhere. My son tried to give it one. He requested a private meeting late one afternoon, not in the office, not at home, neutral ground, a restaurant near the river that tried very hard to feel important. Dark wood, low light, music just loud enough to discourage eavesdropping. I arrived on time. He was already there. He stood when he saw me. That told me more than anything he would say. "You blindsided us," he said as we sat. "I matched your timeline," I replied. "You just did not know it." He ordered a drink, did not offer me one. "You are putting everything at risk," he said. "People are confused." "People are informed," I said. "There is a difference." He leaned forward. "You think this is about ownership," he said. "It is not. It is about control." I nodded. "It always is." His eyes flicked to the window. The river moved slowly outside, indifferent. "We built something," he said. "You walked away." "I stepped back," I corrected. "You filled the space." "Because you were done." "I was finished explaining," I said, "not contributing." His jaw tightened. "You want credit?" he said. "No," I said. "I want accuracy." He laughed, sharp and humorless. "You cannot undo what has already happened." "I do not need to," I said. "I just need to stand where it ends." The conversation went nowhere after that. It was not meant to. This was not negotiation. This was reconnaissance. He was measuring me. I was measuring how far he was willing to go. When we stood to leave, he blocked my path for a moment. Not aggressively, deliberately. "You will regret this," he said. I met his eyes. I regretted silence longer, I said. Outside, the air was cool and clean. I breathed it in slowly. At home, my wife was waiting with her laptop open. "They are trying to rally support," she said, without looking up, individually, quietly. "Who?" I asked. "Everyone they think might hesitate," she said. "They are framing you as unpredictable." I smiled. "That is progress." She glanced up. "You enjoy this." "I enjoy clarity," I said. She closed the laptop. "There is something else," she said. They are preparing a move. What kind? A public one. That came sooner than expected. My daughter scheduled an all-hands meeting, company-wide, mandatory attendance, framed as reassurance, as leadership transparency, as unity. I attended. The auditorium was full, faces turned toward the stage, expectant, tense. My daughter stood at the podium, poised, confident. She wore the same expression she used in interviews, calm authority with just enough warmth. She spoke about growth, about challenges, about resilience. Then she spoke about family. Sometimes, she said, personal history can complicate professional environments. Eyes shifted. People glanced at me. But this company was built by its people, she continued, not by legacy. That word landed hard. Legacy. She did not say my name. She did not need to. When she finished, applause filled the room. Polite, uneven. I stood. The sound died quickly. I agree, I said. My voice carried easily. This company is built by its people, which is why accuracy matters. Murmurs rippled. I am not here to disrupt operations, I said. I am here to ensure they are grounded in reality, and reality includes understanding how credibility has been used. My daughter watched me, expression locked. There will be a review, I said, of communications, of representations, of assumptions. People stiffened. This is not punitive, I said. It is corrective. I sat down. The meeting ended without questions. That night, my wife poured herself a drink and leaned against the counter. They will not try subtlety again, she said. I know. Next time will be force. Physical? I asked. Presence, she said. They will try to corner you, make it public, emotional. I nodded. Good, I said. I am tired of shadows. The next morning, I received a calendar invite. Board meeting, emergency session. I accepted. The final act was beginning to assemble itself, and everyone involved knew it. They just did not know who would still be standing when it finished. Emergency meetings are never about emergencies. They are about control, about who gets to define the moment before anyone else does. By the time I entered the boardroom that morning, the shape of the confrontation was already clear. People sat straighter than usual. Laptops were open but unused. No one made small talk. My son was there early again. My daughter sat 2 seats away from him, close enough to coordinate, far enough to deny it. I took my place without acknowledging either of them. The chair called the meeting to order. His voice was steady, but his hands betrayed him. He was gripping the edge of the table as if it might move. We are here to address concerns raised about representation, governance, and leadership stability, he said. That was my cue. I leaned forward. Then we should begin with facts, I said, because stability depends on them. My son exhaled sharply. You are hijacking this process, he said. No, I replied. I am anchoring it. I laid out the timeline calmly. No accusations, no embellishment, just sequence, where my name had been used, where assumptions had been allowed to form, where silence had been interpreted as endorsement. People followed along. Some nodded, others stared at the table. My daughter spoke next. You are framing this as intentional, she said. It was not. I am framing it as convenient, I replied, which often looks identical from the outside. She smiled tightly. This is a family issue, she said. It should not be aired like this. It became a corporate issue the moment it benefited the company, I said. The room shifted again. Chairs creaked. Pens stopped moving. The chair cleared his throat. We need to determine next steps, he said. I agree, I said, which is why I am proposing structural changes. I outlined them. Clean, precise, oversight, clarified authority, separation of narrative and decision-making, nothing radical, everything necessary. My son stood. You are stripping us of autonomy, he said. I am restoring accountability, I said. You are doing this because you are angry. I am doing this because I waited, I said, and waiting showed me exactly where things would break. The argument escalated after that. Voices rose, people interrupted, someone suggested mediation, someone else suggested delay. I said nothing. When the noise peaked, I stood again. This is not a negotiation, I said. It is a correction. Silence returned. The vote passed narrowly. That mattered less than how it passed. People did not vote against my children. They voted for stability. That distinction would haunt them longer. After the meeting, my son followed me into the corridor. You turned them against us, he said. They turned toward what made sense, I replied. He grabbed my arm. Not hard, not violent, just enough. Security reacted instantly. Hands appeared. Space opened. My son stepped back, face flushed, eyes wide. Everyone saw it. That moment traveled faster than any email ever could. By the time I reached my office, messages were already coming in, requests, clarifications, alignments. At home that night, my wife listened without interrupting. They touched you, she said. Briefly. She nodded once. That changes everything. Yes, I said. It gives you moral high ground, she said, and legal insulation. I smiled. You sound pleased. I am relieved, she said. I was getting impatient. The next day, my daughter requested a private conversation. Not neutral ground this time. My office. She arrived composed, sat across from me, crossed her legs carefully. This has gone too far, she said. It has gone exactly where it was headed, I replied. You are dismantling what we built. I am exposing what it relied on. She leaned in. You think people will forgive you for this? I am not seeking forgiveness, I said. I am seeking accuracy. Her voice dropped. You could have talked to us. I did, I said. Years ago. You stopped listening. She stood abruptly. You will not win, she said. I looked up at her. I already have, I said. You just have not felt it yet. She left without another word. That evening, my wife handed me her phone. They are planning something public, she said. A final push. I glanced at the screen. An event announcement. A company showcase. Media presence. Investors. Partners. They want to corner you in front of witnesses, she said. Good, I replied. She studied me carefully. Are you ready for how this ends? She asked. I thought of the years of silence, of the casual dismissals, of my name used like a tool. Yes, I said. The stage was set, and they had chosen the spotlight themselves. They marketed the event like a celebration, new partnerships, strategic vision, a glimpse into the future. The language was polished, optimistic, deliberately vague. Everything about it suggested momentum. Everything about it was designed to project certainty. Uncertainty was already baked in. The venue was downtown, glass walls, high ceilings, a place meant to impress without committing to anything specific. I arrived early, again. Not because I needed to, because arriving early unsettles people who arrive late. Media crews were setting up, lights adjusted, microphones tested, staff moved with rehearsed efficiency. I walked through it all like someone who belonged there. No one stopped me. I took a seat near the front. My daughter was everywhere at once, directing, greeting, smiling. She had always thrived in controlled chaos. My son stayed closer to the stage, speaking quietly with investors, nodding at the right moments. They avoided me. That was new. When the event began, the room filled quickly. Partners, employees, observers, people who wanted to be associated with success while it still felt clean. My daughter took the stage first. She spoke well. Of course she did. She always had. Her voice carried confidence without arrogance. She talked about vision, about alignment, about building something sustainable. She did not mention me. That omission was louder than anything she could have said. My son followed. He spoke about execution, about discipline, about leadership. He referenced past decisions, future milestones. He painted a picture of control. I watched the room as much as the stage. People leaned forward. They wanted reassurance. They wanted stability. They wanted someone to tell them this turbulence was temporary. When my son finished, applause came quickly. The moderator thanked them both and opened the floor for questions. I stood before anyone else could. The moderator hesitated, looked at my badge, looked at the seating chart. Confusion flickered. "I have a question," I said. The microphone reached me. The room quieted. "I would like clarification," I said calmly, "on how leadership defines representation when external credibility is implied." A ripple moved through the audience. My daughter's smile tightened. My son's eyes fixed on me. "Specifically," I continued, "how legacy associations have been communicated to partners and whether those associations remain accurate." Silence stretched. The moderator glanced at the stage. My daughter stepped forward. "We are proud of our history," she said, "but this company stands on its current leadership." "I agree," I said, "which is why accuracy matters." I turned slightly, addressing the room. "My name has been associated with this company for years, sometimes directly, often indirectly. I want to be clear about what that association means now." People shifted. Cameras adjusted. "I am the majority owner," I said, "and I am here to correct the record." The room exploded into motion, voices overlapped. The moderator tried to regain control. My son stepped toward me. "You cannot do this here," he said too loudly. "I can," I replied. "And I am." Security moved closer, not to me, to the stage. I continued. "This company has benefited from assumptions about my involvement," I said. "Those assumptions were never corrected. Today they are." I looked directly at my children. "There is a difference between building something and borrowing its shadow," I said. "Today, the borrowing ends." My daughter tried to speak. The moderator raised a hand, unsure who he was managing anymore. I did not wait. "There will be leadership changes," I said. "Effective immediately. They will be announced through proper channels." The tension snapped. My son pushed through the space between us. "Stop," he said. Security intervened. Hands appeared. Voices sharpened. The room watched, frozen between spectacle and disbelief. I stood still. "I am done speaking," I said. I handed the microphone back. The event dissolved into noise. People stood. Phones came out. Staff scrambled. My children were pulled aside, surrounded by voices they could no longer control. I walked out through the side exit without anyone stopping me. Outside, the air felt lighter. My wife was waiting by the car. "It happened faster than I expected," she said. "They forced it," I replied. She nodded. "They always do." As we drove away, my phone buzzed. Messages stacked, calls missed, requests poured in. I did not answer any of them. The final act was not over yet. It was just narrowing. And everyone involved knew there would be no soft landing. After the event, the city felt different. Not quieter, not calmer, just sharper. Like the edges had been filed down enough for things to cut cleanly. News traveled fast, faster than context, faster than intent. By the time we reached home, my name was already circulating in spaces I had not occupied in years. My wife set her phone face down on the counter. "They are spiraling," she said. "Both of them, separately." "Good," I replied. "Spirals end somewhere." She studied me. "Do not underestimate what panic does to people who think they are entitled to outcomes." "I am counting on it," I said. The next 48 hours were controlled chaos. Official statements were drafted, redrafted, softened, hardened, lawyers circled, advisors repositioned. People who had ignored me for years suddenly wanted my time. I gave none of it. I focused on execution. Leadership changes were implemented exactly as planned, not vindictive, not theatrical, surgical. Authority was redistributed, reporting lines clarified, oversight installed, every move defensible, every decision documented. My children reacted in predictable ways. My daughter went silent publicly. No statements, no appearances. That silence spoke volumes. It told people she was regrouping, or hiding, or both. My son did the opposite. He pushed back hard. Emails, calls, demands, accusations framed as concern. He accused me of destabilizing the company, of acting emotionally, of violating trust. Trust. That word always appears when people realize they are losing leverage. He requested another meeting. Urgent. Private. This time he chose the location, the parking structure beneath the company headquarters. I agreed. My wife raised an eyebrow when I told her. "Do you want me there?" she asked. "No," I said, "but be close." She nodded. Always. The garage was dim and mostly empty when I arrived. Late afternoon, light slanted through the open sides, cutting the space into sharp lines. The smell of concrete and exhaust hung in the air. My son stood near his car. He had chosen a corner, fewer witnesses. That told me something. "You are enjoying this," he said as I approached. "No," I replied. "I am finishing it." He laughed, brittle. "You think you can just erase us?" "I am correcting the story," I said. "Erasure was your method." He stepped closer. "You owe us," he said. "Everything we are came from you." "Then you should have acknowledged it," I said. "Not exploited it." His hands clenched. "You are ruining us." "You ruined yourselves," I said. "I just stopped absorbing the impact." He lunged forward, not violently, desperately. I did not move. Security appeared from nowhere. They always do when they are supposed to. Hands grabbed his arms. He struggled, shouted. The sound echoed harshly. "Let me go," he yelled. "This is my father." That line landed differently now. Security held him until he calmed. Then they released him slowly, carefully. He stood there, breathing hard, eyes wild. "This is not over," he said. "It is," I replied. "You just have not accepted it yet." I turned and walked away. That was the last time I spoke to him privately. The final confrontation was already scheduled. The board had called a final session, full attendance. Media aware but excluded. Decisions to be ratified. Authority to be finalized. I arrived with my wife. She squeezed my hand once before we entered. "Whatever happens," she said, "do not soften." "I will not," I said. Inside, the room buzzed with tension. My daughter sat rigid. My son stared at the table. The chair opened the session. "We need closure," he said. "You will have it," I replied. I stood. The room quieted. "I am removing both of you from executive roles," I said, looking at my children. "Effective immediately." My daughter inhaled sharply. "You cannot," she said. "I already have," I replied. I continued. "This is not punishment," I said. "It is consequence." My son finally looked up. "You planned this from the beginning," he said. "No," I said. "I adapted when I realized who you had become." The chair called for the vote. Hands rose, one by one. The decision passed. My children sat frozen. I gathered my papers. As I turned to leave, my daughter spoke. "You will regret this," she said, her voice breaking. I stopped, looked at her. "I regret waiting," I said. I walked out. The building doors closed behind me with a final solid sound. The story was ending, and there would be no revisions,